All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So we've got a lot of interesting things to talk about today, but let's go ahead and start with the wrap-up of the 2019 New York Pro, which just happened this past weekend. So at the New York Pro, you had men's open bodybuilding, classic physique, and 212. Now, the results of all three of these divisions were relatively eventful and interesting, so we're going to talk about all three of these divisions in this video. So let's go ahead and start with men's open bodybuilding, because I'm assuming that's what most people are here to see. Now, the winner of the New York Pro in the men's open bodybuilding category was Juan Morel. And really, this was no surprise to many of us. He was coming off that Arnold Classic Brazil win. He really had a lot of momentum going into this show. And Juan Morel was really the favorite going into this show from the get-go. He was one of the best bodybuilders in this lineup, and he did very well here. Now, to be honest with you guys, I've never really been a big fan of the lighting at the New York Pro. I think it kind of makes the guys look soft and kind of washes them out a little bit. Every year, or at least the past couple of years at the New York Pro, the lighting has looked kind of weird to me. And in these particular photos of Juan Morel, I would say he looked better. In my opinion, he looked better at the Arnold Classic Brazil. Now, he still looked very good here, but I think from a conditioning standpoint, it looks to me like we saw a better version of Juan in Brazil from a conditioning standpoint. He looks a lot fuller here and a lot rounder here. But conditioning-wise, I prefer the conditioning that we saw at the Arnold Brazil. Now, that being said, in this lineup, Juan Morel's conditioning was very, very good, because this lineup really wasn't the most conditioned lineup that we've seen at a pro show. You had Akeem Williams coming in second. In my opinion, Akeem's conditioning was way off the mark, but again, that lighting really seems to make these guys look softer. But Akeem didn't really look like we saw him look at the Indy Pro, where you could have made an argument for Akeem winning that show. I think Juan Morel here was a very, very solid victory for Juan Morel, and really hard to even dispute. Now, coming in third place here, I think you had a relatively surprising guy, Milan Sadiq. So Milan Sadiq was a former 212 competitor, and as a 212 competitor, he was a relatively big 212 competitor, and he struggled to make weight for 212. And in this lineup, I think the thing that really placed him so highly, again, top three here, third place, was his conditioning. I think this was a lineup where a lot of guys came in out of condition, and the guys that had really good condition were able to kind of sneak up and place higher than some guys that were expected to place higher. Milan Sadiq came in pretty good proportions, pretty good physique, but his conditioning was really, really good. And I think that's what landed him this third place spot here. A guy that really, I don't think anyone expected to be in that top three in this lineup, but he was. Now, coming in fourth place here, you had Della Rossa. I think we saw a much better Della Rossa than we saw at the last New York Pro that he did, where I think a lot of people felt he didn't really look that good at all. I think John looked pretty good here, a solid fourth place spot. And I think, again, much better conditioning than we saw from him in the past. And, you know, that brings up the whole point of Akeem Williams taking second. I really do feel that Akeem slipped significantly between the Akeem that we saw at the Indy Pro with conditioning that was pretty far spot on for Akeem. I mean, the conditioning that he brought to the Indy Pro was really, really good. And the conditioning that he brought here, I don't even really think was comparable to the Indy Pro. I think you could have made an argument for a guy like Della Rossa moving up above a guy like Akeem, or even Milan Sadiq, just because that conditioning was so much better than Akeem's. I think you could have had Akeem move down a couple places and some guys with that crazy conditioning move up. Now, coming in fifth place here, you had Justin Luis Rodriguez. I think Justin looked good here, but he didn't really look spectacular or really look much different than he usually looks. I do think he's a guy that's got tremendous potential in shows like this, but I think his conditioning needs to be tighter. And coming in sixth place, you've got the German bodybuilder Tim Budeshim, who a lot of people were very excited about because of his conditioning. And again, I think his conditioning was good here for this lineup, and that's why he was top six. But I think overall, his conditioning didn't really look as crazy as a lot of people were making it out to be. People were saying he was going to be like one of the most shredded guys in this lineup, and he was very conditioned for this lineup, I'll say that. But really looking at the pictures, he didn't really look that crazy shredded as people were really making it out that he was going to be. And again, I think that washout lighting could be partially to blame for that. Now, next up, I want to talk about Classic Physique at the New York Pro. Now, this was a very interesting one because Classic Physique 1 and 2, from what I've heard from people who were there, was kind of a controversial decision. Maybe not so much in the eyes of the fans, but in the eyes of the second place finisher, Alex Cabernero. Now, from what I've heard, this guy was very, very upset with his second place finish to Keon Pearson. Now, Keon Pearson won this show, the Classic Physique division. I think it was a deserved win. I think Keon is a very, very complete Classic Physique competitor. I said this at the Arnold Classic. I think the main thing that Keon needs to work on is conditioning. and coming in sharper. But overall, from a structure standpoint, from a completeness standpoint, I think Keon really has all of the tools in his arsenal to be a very, very dangerous classic physique guy. Just the main criticism would be conditioning. And I don't think he looked bad here. I don't think his conditioning was bad at all. And I do think he deserved to win here. Now, Alex Cabernero, he did have slightly better conditioning than Keon Pearson based on the photos that I'm seeing. But I think overall, as a classic physique, I really prefer Keon's physique as the winner of the classic physique division. Now, I'm told that not only was this guy that took second very disappointed on stage, but I'm told backstage he was throwing kind of a temper tantrum and breaking things backstage, or threw a trophy or broke a mirror or something to that effect. So people were saying this guy was really, really not happy with the judge's decision in placing him second and not having him win this show. And again, looking back at the pictures, I'm not really seeing the justification for this, and we'll talk about this in a minute. I think the 212 decision was a much more controversial decision than we have here in classic physique. And again, you know, looking back at the photos, I can maybe see an argument from a conditioning standpoint for Alex Cabernero over Keon Pearson. But I think overall, as who's the more classic guy, who's the more complete, who has better proportions, who has the better overall classic physique with good conditioning still. I mean, Keon was not in bad shape. I think Keon definitely deserved the win in classic physique. I don't have any problem with it, and I think that was a good decision by the judges. Now, coming in third place in classic physique, you had Kenneth Owens. Coming in fourth, you had Giuseppe Zagarella. And coming in fifth, you had Damian Patrick. All right, so as promised, let's go ahead and talk about the 212 category at the New York Pro. Now, this is the category that I saw the most backlash about and the most comments saying they felt that this was a controversial decision between first and second here. It was between Ahmad Ashkanani, who has won the Arnold Classic. He's been second at the Mr. Olympia in the 212. Arguably one of the best 212 bodybuilders in the world right now, especially with the fact that Flex Lewis has now switched to men's open bodybuilding. Ahmad Ashkanani is considered one of the best, if not the best 212 guy right now. So he jumped in this show. He didn't really need to. I mean, he's already qualified for the Olympia. And I've got to say, I think he looked off here. Now, the big controversy was between first and second. Now, in second place, you had Eduardo Correa, who hasn't competed in about 3 years. Eduardo Correa came back to compete at this show, and you can really tell he gave it all he got at this show from a conditioning standpoint. He was really shredded to the bone and probably one of the best conditioned physiques that we've seen on Eduardo Correa. And a lot of people in the crowd and a lot of people that were there in person felt that Eduardo should have won the show. Now, looking at the comparison photos, I think one thing that jumps out to me, if you look at Ahmad Ashkanani from the back and look at Eduardo from the back, you can really see the difference in conditioning in those back shots. I think Ahmad Ashkanani was holding some water. His conditioning was just off compared to Eduardo, whereas Eduardo looked like he was like 1,000% on, as honest he really could be. And I think the big controversy there is that even though he was so on, apparently it still wasn't enough for him to overcome Ahmad Ashkanani. Now, Eduardo Correa, he has some flaws in his physique to me. I mean, I think he has some weak points. One arm definitely looks smaller and more atrophied than the other. And overall, Ahmad Ashkanani is one of the best in the world for a reason. He's a very, very complete 212 bodybuilder. Conditioning aside, he's one of the best, one of the most muscular, one of the most complete, one of the best proportioned. He's a very, very dangerous 212 guy for a reason. So to me, the decision was a little bit controversial. I think Eduardo was very noticeably better in terms of conditioning than Ahmad Ashkanani. I think there's no question about the conditioning factor. And while we like to say conditioning wins shows and conditioning is very important, I think that, you know, something else that needs to be considered is the completeness of the physique. And when it comes down to it, like I said, Ahmad is one of the most complete 212 guys in the world right now. So I think even though Eduardo was more conditioned than him, vastly more conditioned than him, I think it really ended up coming down to Ahmad being the more complete bodybuilder overall. Now, had Ahmad Ashkanani came in here shredded to the bone, there would be absolutely no question in anybody's mind that Ahmad Ashkanani was the hands-down winner with that complete physique combined with conditioning. So to have a little bit off version of Ahmad still win the show, it's controversial, but I don't think it's that controversial. I mean, this guy was second at the Olympia, Arnold Classic winner. Again, probably one of the best 212 guys in the world today outside of Derek Lunsford. So do I think the decision was controversial? Yes. You could definitely make an argument for Eduardo winning the show, but at the end of the day, I would say I understand the judges' decisions. Now, in third place, you had Kareth Bajo. In fourth place, you had Juno Kim. And in fifth place, you had Steve Bentham in the 212 category. So that wraps it up for the New York Pro 2019 wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And if you have not seen the big video of the weekend of Arnold Schwarzenegger being attacked in South Africa, go check it out. It's up on my channel now. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Give the video a thumbs up, comment down below. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.